My mom's not feeling right, she said. I'm taking her to the hospital. I'll stay with her overnight. I watched her mouth form the words. I watched how her eyes didn't. Not really. Okay, I said, because that's what husbands say when they're trying to be good men. Drive safe. Text me if anything happens, she said. The sentence came out too smooth, like a line delivered at an audition. I nodded. I even reached for her elbow, like I might offer to go with her. No, she said, too quick. It's going to be, stress. I'll call when I can. She kissed my cheek. Her lips were warm. Her mind was somewhere else. Then she was gone, and the house settled into that empty sound it makes when one person leaves and the other stays behind with his questions. I stood there with my phone in my hand and stared at our last message like it might change if I stared hard enough. Me. Drive safe. Mara. The heart sat on the screen like a little promise, like a tiny lie. 20 minutes later, I was still in my truck, still driving with no plan. I told myself I was going to the pharmacy for cough drops. I told myself I wanted to grab coffee to stay awake. I told myself anything except the truth, which was that my body had already decided it didn't believe her. The city was wet with December rain. Traffic lights bled color onto the pavement. I eased up behind a line of cars and stopped at a long red. That's when I looked left. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. A black sedan rolled up beside me, close enough that I could see the condensation on its windows and the fast movement behind the glass. The backseat light flicked on for a second, maybe from a phone screen, and in that flash I saw my wife's hair, the exact shade I'd paid for last month, falling forward as she laughed. Then she turned her face up, and a man's hand was on her jaw. They were making out like teenagers, careless and hungry, like the world had never taught them consequences. My hands locked on the steering wheel. My chest went tight, not like heartbreak, like pressure, like my ribs were a cage and something inside was trying to get out. The man leaned back. He was in his 30s, clean haircut, expensive watch, the kind of confidence you can buy when you've never had to clean up your own mess. He looked out the window, caught me staring, and smiled. Then he did the one thing I'll never forget. He lifted Mara's phone and turned it toward me like he was showing off a trophy. On the screen was my own message, "Drive safe," and right beneath it, her reply. He tapped the heart with his thumb, then lifted his free hand and gave me a slow, friendly little wave. Like we were neighbors passing in a grocery store. The light turned green. The sedan moved. My truck moved too, because that's what cars do when the light changes, even when your life doesn't. I could have followed them. I could have done the movie thing, slam the horn, cut him off, drag him out by the collar and scream into his face. I could have become the version of myself she would later describe to people. Instead, I breathed in through my nose and forced air into my lungs like it was a job. Anger is loud, smart is quiet. I pulled into a gas station 2 blocks later and sat there with my hands still locked on the wheel, staring at nothing, while rain ticked against the windshield like impatient fingers. My phone buzzed. Mara. Checking in. We're in triage. It's chaos. I'll call later. I stared at that message for a full minute. Then I did the first logical thing I'd done all night. I took a screenshot. People think the moment you catch someone is the moment your world explodes. That's not how it felt. Not for me. It felt like a switch, like my brain, tired of guessing, finally had something it could label lie. I drove home slow because driving fast wouldn't fix anything and I didn't want to give the universe a chance to add another problem. I parked in my own driveway and sat for a second, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. Inside, our house looked the same as it had when she left. A dish in the sink, her slippers by the couch, The throw blanket folded the way she liked it, corners lined up like a magazine photo. That normalness made my stomach turn. I walked into my office and opened the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet, the one I used for boring things, taxes, insurance, warranties, the grown-up drawer. I pulled out a manila folder and wrote a date on the tab with a Sharpie, DEC 17. Then underneath it, one word, Mara. I clipped the screenshot to the inside and stared at it like a priest staring at a confession. I didn't cry. Not yet. I didn't yell. I didn't smash anything. That kind of chaos feels good for about 5 seconds. Then it costs you. I sat down at my desk and made a list. 1. Don't confront her tonight. 2. Don't tell anyone who will tell her. 3. Don't touch our joint account without a plan. 4. Get facts, real facts. 5. Call a lawyer. Tomorrow. The list wasn't heroic. It was survival. At midnight, my phone rang. Mara, I said, keeping my voice flat. Hey, she whispered. There was background noise, hospital beeps, distant voices, or maybe a TV in a hotel lobby. Sound is easy to fake when you're only giving a little of it. She's okay? I asked. They're doing tests, she said. I'm exhausted. I'm going to try to sleep in the chair. In the chair, I repeated. Yeah, she said. Don't worry. I love you. She hung up fast, before I could answer. I stared at my phone for a long time, then placed it face down on the desk like it was a contaminated object. The next morning, I went to work like a man with a normal life. That was the second logical thing. I work in compliance for a regional bank. My job is to notice what people don't want noticed. Patterns, timing, little inconsistencies that, when you line them up, tell a story no one wants told. It's not glamorous, it's just attention, sharpened into a tool. At lunch, I sat in my truck with a turkey sandwich and called my friend Drew. Drew is the kind of guy who can fix a broken fence and a broken mood without making a speech about it. We grew up together. He's seen me fail, seen me succeed, seen me try to act like nothing hurts. I need you to do something, I said. He didn't ask what. He didn't joke. All right, he said. Tell me. I might be wrong, I said, and I hated the way my voice cracked on that word. But if I'm not, I need someone who isn't me to keep me from doing something stupid. There was a pause. Where are you? He asked. At work, I said. I'll explain after. You don't have to explain, he said. Just tell me what you need. I need an extra set of eyes, I said, and I need you to keep your mouth shut. He snorted once, not amused, just acknowledging. That part I can do, he said. Mara came home at noon wearing the same coat, looking like she'd spent a hard night in a hospital chair. If she'd been acting on a stage, she deserved an award. Her hair was slightly messy in a believable way. Her makeup was minimal. Her eyes had that tired shine. She set her purse down and exhaled, dramatic and soft. How's your mom? I asked. Better, she said immediately. They ran tests. It was dehydration, a pressure issue, nothing scary. That's good, I said. She stepped closer, searching my face. You okay? She asked. You look off. Didn't sleep much, I said. True enough. She nodded. I didn't either. Then she reached up and touched my chest with her palm, right over my heart, like she could feel if it was beating wrong. In that moment, I understood something cold. This wasn't just cheating. This was a performance designed to keep me participating. Can you do me a favor? She asked. Sure, I said. My phone gone in the ER, she said. Can I use your charger? The fast one. Her eyes flicked toward my office, toward the desk where my phone had been face down, toward the folder that now sat in my drawer like a quiet weapon. Of course, I said. I walked to the office and pulled the charger off the wall. She followed me, leaning against the door frame, watching. As I handed it to her, my own phone buzzed on the desk. A calendar reminder. Meeting with audit, 2 p.m. Mara glanced at the screen and smiled. It was small, almost affectionate, but it hit me like a shove, because that smile didn't belong to a woman who'd spent the night worrying about her mother. That smile belonged to someone who was checking whether I was distracted. "Big day?" she asked. "Always," I said. She took the charger and left the room. I waited until I heard the bathroom door close. Then I opened the drawer and added another line to my list. 6. She is watching me. I emailed my supervisor asking to take a personal day the next day. I called it a family issue. He didn't ask questions. In compliance, we all understand family issue can mean anything from a sick parent to a messy divorce to the kind of mistake that makes you lose your license. That afternoon, I drove to a law office in a strip mall on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just a sign that said Carter Family Law. I'd found the name online after looking at reviews and checking licenses, because if you're going to do something terrifying, you might as well do it with someone who knows the rules. A woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice led me into a small conference room. "I'm Laura Carter," she said. "Tell me what's happening." I took out my phone and slid the screenshot across the table. Her face didn't change. She only nodded once, like she'd seen the same human story with different faces 1,000 times. "Do you have kids?" she asked. "No," I said. "Assets?" she asked. "House, retirement, joint accounts," I said. "Both names." "Any violence?" she asked, looking me straight in the eye. "No," I said. "Never." "Any threats?" she asked. "No," I said. She leaned back. "Good. We keep it that way." I swallowed. "I want to do this clean," I said. "I don't want to end up broke or painted as the villain." "You won't," she said, like it was a promise she could actually keep. "But you have to listen to me." "I will," I said. She tapped the screenshot. "This is a start," she said. "But it's not the whole picture. We need a timeline. We need proof that doesn't depend on a he said she said story." I nodded. She slid a notepad toward me. "Write down every date you remember," she said. "Anything strange. Anything that didn't add up. We build the story before they build theirs." "They?" I asked. She didn't smile. "Affairs rarely travel alone," she said. "They bring friends." That night, Mara cooked dinner. Spaghetti, garlic bread, comfort food like a peace offering. She moved around the cook area humming a song I didn't recognize. She didn't look guilty. She looked relieved. "Want wine?" she asked. "No," I said. "I've got an early meeting." She poured herself a glass anyway. She sipped it slow, eyes on me. "So," she said casually, "my phone's been weird. Glitchy." "Glitchy," I repeated. "Yeah," she said. "Sometimes it sends messages late, sometimes it doesn't send at all." I almost laughed. "That's annoying," I said. She nodded, as if the universe had conspired against her, as if technology was the villain in our marriage. "If I don't respond right away," she said, "don't take it personally. It's just the phone." "I won't," I said. She watched me chew. She watched me swallow. She watched for a reaction that didn't come. Later, when she went to bed, I stayed up and sat at my desk with the manila folder open. I started printing bank statements, credit card activity, our car insurance, the deed, copies of my pay stubs, copies of hers. I wasn't stealing, I wasn't hiding, I was preparing. There's a difference, even if it doesn't feel like it. At 1:12 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Mara. "Babe, I'm so sorry. Mom's acting up again. I'm going to go back over there tomorrow after work." I stared at that message. Then I glanced down at the credit card statement I'd printed. A charge from last week. Lux Inn and Suites, $189.36. We didn't travel. We didn't take weekend trips. And the hotel wasn't near her mother's house. I took another screenshot, added it to the folder. In the morning, I followed her. Not like a lunatic tailing a spy, like a man driving the same direction at a distance, letting traffic do the hiding. Mara left at 8:10. She drove toward downtown. I stayed 3 cars back, sometimes 4, sometimes losing her for a block and finding her again like a bad habit. She turned into the parking lot of a medical office building. Her mother's doctor? Her own work? I didn't know. I parked in the far corner under a tree and waited with my hands in my lap. 10 minutes later, the black sedan pulled in. The man from the red light got out and stretched like he owned the world. He walked around to the passenger side and opened the door for Mara. She stepped out of her own car and met him halfway. No hospital, no mom, no emergency. Just a kiss that lasted long enough that it wasn't a greeting. It was a confirmation. Then they walked inside together, his hand on the small of her back like she was already his. I didn't move. I didn't honk. I didn't storm in. I took my phone and recorded a short video from behind my windshield, careful to keep my hands steady. Then I drove away, before my anger decided to drive for me. I sent the video to Drew with no explanation. He replied 1 minute later. Drew, say the word. I stared at the message and typed back. Me, not yet. Laura Carter didn't flinch when I showed her the video. Good, she said, but don't do that again. I need proof, I said. You need admissible proof, she corrected. And you need to stay out of any situation where you can be accused of stalking or harassment. I nodded. The rules mattered. I knew that. I'd spent my life watching people ruin themselves because they thought the rules didn't apply when feelings got involved. So what do? I asked. We hire a licensed investigator, she said. Someone who knows the boundaries. Someone whose reports hold weight. How much? I asked. She named a number that made my stomach tighten, then added, It's cheaper than losing half your life because you acted on emotion. I exhaled. Do it, I said. Her investigator was a man named Paul Weller. Mid-50s, clean shirt, calm hands, the kind of guy who looks like he could sell you a boat or break into your garage, depending on the day. He shook my hand and sat across from me. I don't care about the drama, he said. I care about the facts. You want the truth? Yes, I said. He nodded. Then don't try to help, he said. Let me work. For the next 2 weeks, I lived with Mara like a man sharing a house with a stranger. We smiled. We ate dinner. We watched shows. We said goodnight. Every time she lied, I felt it like a pebble in my shoe. Small, constant, impossible to ignore. Paul sent updates in short, professional messages. December 20th. Subject met male individual at hotel, stayed 3 hours. December 22nd. Subject met male individual at restaurant. Public affection observed. December 24th. Subject spent night at residence of male individual. Returned home 6:47 a.m. Christmas Eve, she told me her mom needed help again. She kissed me and left while I wrapped gifts for her like an idiot. I didn't confront her. I didn't ruin Christmas for the version of myself that still wanted to believe in good memories. But I added every report to the folder. On December 26th, Laura called me. There's something else, she said. My stomach sank. What? Your wife filed a consultation with another attorney, she said. A man named Victor Hale. Is that bad? I asked. It's not unexpected, she said. But Hale is aggressive. He likes conflict, and he likes leverage. Leverage, I repeated. Laura's voice stayed calm. Have you ever raised your voice at her? Grabbed her arm? Taken her phone? Anything that could be twisted? No, I said. I'm careful. Be more careful, she said. If they can turn this into a narrative where you're controlling or unstable, it helps her. I pictured the smile on Mara's face in my doorway, the way she'd watched my phone, the way she'd mentioned her glitchy device. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was pattern. What if she's setting me up? I asked. Laura didn't hesitate. Then we don't step into the trap. Mara started picking fights in January. Little ones at first. Complaints about the dishes, about the thermostat, about how I checked out lately. "You're acting weird," she said one night, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed. "Are you hiding something?" The audacity was almost impressive. "No," I said. "So why are you so distant?" she asked. "Do you even want to be married?" I looked at her face and tried to find the woman I'd married, the woman who used to laugh at stupid movies and steal fries off my plate, the woman who cried when our dog gone and held my hand at the vet like we were both children. That woman felt like a story someone had told me a long time ago. "I want honesty," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said carefully, "if something's wrong, I'd rather know." She stepped closer. "Are you accusing me?" she asked, voice rising like she wanted the walls to hear. I raised my hand slightly, palms open, calm, visible. "I'm not accusing you of anything," I said. "I'm asking." Her face changed, not guilt, something sharper. "You're paranoid," she snapped. "You've been stressed at work and now you're imagining things." I let the accusation hang in the air. I didn't defend myself. Defending is how you get pulled into an argument you didn't start. She leaned in, voice lower. "If you don't trust me," she said, "maybe you should leave." I nodded once. "Maybe," I said. The word hit her like a slap. She turned away fast like she'd lost control of the script. That night, after she fell asleep, I opened my laptop and searched our phone bill. I wasn't proud, but pride doesn't pay attorneys. There it was, a number she'd called every day, sometimes twice, sometimes late at night, a number I didn't recognize. I didn't call it. I didn't text it. I copied it into my notes and sent it to Paul. 2 hours later, he replied. "Paul, registered to Jacob Brains, address attached, he's married." I read the last 2 words 3 times. He's married. My anger flared, then cooled into something else, an ugly, focused clarity. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a whole other life running parallel to mine, built on lies like scaffolding. I called Drew. "He's married," I said. Drew exhaled hard. "That poor woman," he said. "I don't know her," I said. "You can," Drew said quietly, "if you want." I thought about the smile at the red light, the wave, the phone held up like a joke. "Yeah," I said, "I want." Her name was Allison. I found her through public records and social media the way you find anyone in 2025, by following the breadcrumbs people leave without thinking. Allison's profile was full of golden hour family photos, a smiling husband, 2 kids, a dog, a lake house weekend, a blessed caption under a Christmas tree. It made my throat feel tight. I didn't message her from my account. Laura advised against it. "Anything you say could be used," she told me, "and if your wife's attorney wants to paint you as vindictive, they'll try." So Paul contacted her, professional and careful, offering to share information if she wished. No threats, no drama. Allison called me that night. Her voice was steady, but there was something brittle under it, like glass waiting to crack. "Are you Ethan?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I didn't believe him," she said immediately. "The investigator. I thought it was a scam. Then he sent a picture." My stomach turned. "I'm sorry," I said. She didn't answer right away. "I saw them," she said finally. "My husband and your wife, together, kissing outside a hotel." Silence stretched. "I want to meet," she said. We met at a coffee shop off the highway, neutral ground. She was smaller than I expected, with tired eyes and a neat ponytail. She didn't look like a stereotype of revenge. She looked like a person who'd been punched in the soul and still had to pack lunches in the morning. She slid a folder across the table. "I started keeping things," she said. I opened it. Hotel receipts, a secret credit card statement, a screenshot of a message from Jacob. "Jacob, Don't worry. My wife doesn't suspect anything. I closed the folder slowly. Allison watched me. What are you going to do? She asked. Legally, I said. Clean, no violence, no stupid mistakes. She nodded, as if she'd been afraid I'd say something else. I don't want my kids to see a war, she said, but I also don't want him to get away with it. Neither do I said. She leaned forward. There's more, she said. He's been moving money, I think. Small transfers, gifts, weird withdrawals. My compliance brain lit up. From where? I asked. Our business account, she said. We own a small logistics company. I handle payroll. He handles vendors. He's been creative. Do you have statements? I asked. She nodded. I printed everything, she said, and her voice held a strange pride, like she'd found one solid thing she could control. I took a breath. If there's fraud, I said, that's not just a marriage problem. Allison, she corrected softly. Not his wife. Okay, I said. Allison, if there's fraud, we document it and we report it the right way. Her eyes sharpened. Will that help me? She asked. It can, I said honestly, but only if we do it carefully. She sat back, thinking. Then she said, He told me you were unstable. The words hit me low. What? I asked. Allison's mouth tightened. He said your wife's husband was crazy, she said. That you might snap. That's why he asked me to keep the kids away from, I don't know, the drama. I stared at her. The puzzle pieces shifted into a new shape. Mara wasn't just cheating. She and Jacob were building a story about me, about us, about how I'd react. Did he say anything else? I asked. Allison hesitated. He said your wife was scared, she said, that you might track her, that you might hurt her if you found out. My hands curled under the table. That's not true, I said, voice tight. I know, she said quickly. I know now. I'm telling you because it matters. It mattered, all right. It mattered like a storm cloud matters when you're standing in an empty field. That night, I installed cameras. Not hidden, not creepy, visible, legal, pointed at my own property. Front door, driveway, garage, living room facing the entry. No bedrooms, no bathrooms. I followed Laura's instructions like scripture. If she claims you did something, she said, you want objective proof of your behavior and her behavior. But don't break privacy laws. Mara noticed the cameras immediately. What is this? She asked, standing in the living room with her eyebrows raised. Security, I said. We've had package thefts in the neighborhood. We have? She asked. Drew had a box stolen last week, I lied, and hated that I'd had to. She stared at the camera, then back at me. You're getting paranoid, she said again. I shrugged. It's my house too, I said. Her jaw tightened at that phrase. My house too, as if the words were a reminder she didn't like. That week, she started leaving her phone face down. She started taking calls outside. She started deleting messages, I could tell, because the way she moved changed, like someone cleaning fingerprints. Paul delivered his final report on January 12th. There were photos, dates, locations, a timeline that made my stomach flip even though I'd asked for it. At the bottom, a note. Subject and male individual discussed the confrontation. Audio not recorded. Investigator observed gestures indicating planning. Planning. I sat at my desk and stared at that word until it blurred. Then I did the third logical thing. I filed. Laura prepared the paperwork with a calm efficiency that felt almost unreal. Petition. Financial disclosures. Temporary orders. The words were sharp, clean tools. When she slid the final documents toward me, my hand hovered over the pen. This is real, I said. It's been real, Laura replied. You're just acknowledging it. I signed. The ink looked darker than it should, like it carried weight. The complaint hit my job like a cold draft through a window you didn't know was cracked. At the bank, Nothing moves fast until it does. One morning, you're answering emails and arguing about policy wording. The next morning, you're sitting in a small room with a frosted glass door, watching an HR manager slide a form across the table like it might bite you. "I want to be clear," the HR manager said. Her name tag read Nora, all caps. "This isn't a judgment, it's a process." Beside her sat an internal investigator from our security team. He wore the same calm face Paul wore, the face of a man who makes his living watching other people's mistakes. "You've been accused of using confidential systems to monitor your spouse," he said, tone neutral. "I haven't," I said. He nodded as if he'd expected that. "Walk us through your access," he said. So I did. I explained my role. I explained what I could see and what I couldn't. I explained that our systems log every meaningful click, that the bank is not a place you can get away with curiosity without leaving footprints. Nora asked, "Did you ever search for your wife's accounts?" "No," I said, "and she doesn't bank with us." The investigator's eyebrow lifted slightly. "She doesn't?" "No," I repeated. "Different institution, different everything." He took notes, slow and deliberate. "Have you installed any tracking devices?" he asked. "No," I said. "I installed visible security cameras on my own property, on advice of counsel. No audio, no private spaces." Nora's eyes narrowed. "Advice of counsel?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm in a divorce situation." They exchanged a look, the quiet kind people exchange when a puzzle piece clicks. The investigator said, "We may need to image your work laptop and phone." "You can," I said. "I want this clean." He nodded. "That helps," he said. As they processed paperwork, Nora softened just a fraction. "Do you feel safe at home?" she asked. The question was standard, but it landed hard. "I feel careful," I said. "I'm not the threat here." She watched me for a second, then said, "Document everything, and don't talk about this on company channels." "I won't," I said. When I left that room, my hands were steady, but my stomach felt hollow. I'd spent years teaching people that compliance isn't about being perfect. It's about being provable. Now I was living inside the lesson. In the hallway, I passed my supervisor. He didn't speak, just gave me a look that said, "I'm sorry this is happening, and I'm watching to make sure you don't drown." I walked back to my desk and did the only thing I could do. I worked. Mara's next move was small, almost invisible. That's how traps work when you're trying to make the other person step in willingly. It started with a missing key. I came home one evening and found her standing at the cook area counter with a spare key in her hand, turning it over and over like it was evidence. "Where'd you get this?" she asked. "It's the spare," I said. "It wasn't in the drawer," she said. "I moved it," I said, "to the lockbox in the garage, for emergencies." Her eyes flashed. "So now you're hiding keys." "I'm organizing," I said. She stepped closer. "You're trying to lock me out," she said, voice rising. I glanced at the living room camera and held my hands out again. "I'm not locking you out," I said. "The locks haven't changed." She scoffed. "Not yet." "What do you want, Mara?" I asked. "Say it plain." She held the key up between us. "I want to feel safe," she said. I almost laughed at the irony, but laughter would have been fuel. "Then we do it the safe way," I said. "We make copies. We document who has what. We don't lose keys and then accuse each other." Her jaw tightened. "You're acting like I'm some criminal," she snapped. I stared at her. "You're acting like you need a story," I said quietly. Her face went blank, then angry again, too fast. "You're impossible," she said. "You know that?" I nodded. "Maybe," I said. "But I'm not violent. I'm not unstable. And I'm not giving you anything you can twist." She stared at me for a long beat, then tossed the key on the counter like it burned her fingers. That night, she left the front door unlocked when she went to bed. I found it at 2 a.m., wide enough that cold air was sneaking in, And for a second, my mind did that terrible thing minds do. Imagined someone walking in, imagined danger, imagined her pointing at me later and saying, "He didn't protect me." I locked it. Then, on a legal pad in my drawer, I wrote, 2:03 a.m. Front door found unlocked. Locked. No confrontation. I took a photo of the time on my phone and the door lock engaged. Then I went back to bed and stared at the ceiling until morning. Once you realize someone is building a case against you, you stop living like you're in a marriage and start living like you're in an audit. Laura told me, "Do not drain joint accounts. Do not make big moves that look like punishment, but you can protect your income going forward." So I opened a separate account in my name only and redirected my direct deposit. I notified Mara in writing, polite, clear, boring. Me. For transparency, my paycheck will be deposited into an individual account beginning next pay period. Joint bills will continue to be paid from the joint account per current schedule. No insults, no emotion, just facts. I set up automatic payments for the mortgage, utilities, and insurance. I printed confirmations. I saved PDFs. I changed passwords on my personal email and financial accounts, the ones that were mine, not shared. I enabled two-factor authentication. I didn't touch her devices. I didn't touch her accounts. I didn't even open her mail. I bought a small fireproof box and stored my passport, my birth certificate, and a copy of my marriage certificate inside. Not because I thought she'd burn the house down, but because people do strange things when they feel cornered. I started carrying cash for gas and food, small bills in case a card stopped working at the wrong moment. And I did the hardest thing. I stopped telling her anything real. When she asked, "How was work?" I said, "Busy." When she asked, "Are you seeing someone?" I said, "No." When she asked, "Why are you so calm?" I said, "I'm trying to be respectful." It drove her crazy. I could see it in the way her foot tapped under the table, in the way she slammed cabinet doors just a little harder than necessary, in the way she started talking louder when we were near the camera, like she wanted the microphone she didn't have. One afternoon, she cornered me in the hallway. "You think you're better than me," she said. "I don't," I said. "Yes, you do," she insisted. "You're sitting there like some judge, like you're perfect." I looked at her and felt the tiredness in my bones. "I'm not perfect," I said. "I'm just not playing." Her eyes narrowed. "Playing what?" she asked, voice sharp. I shook my head. "You know," I said. For the first time, she looked uncertain, not guilty, not ashamed. Uncertain, like she wasn't sure how to win against someone who refused to fight. She backed away and went into the bedroom, slamming the door. The camera caught it all. My hands at my sides, my voice low, her anger loud, a record of restraint. I hated needing it, but I kept building it anyway. Mara was served on January 14th, right after work, in the parking lot of her office. She came home like a hurricane. "You did this?" she shouted, slamming the papers onto the counter. I stood in the cook area with my hands visible, my voice low, calm, always calm. "Yes," I said. "I filed for divorce." Her face twisted. "Because of what? Some suspicion? Some fantasy you invented?" I looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, I let my eyes show the truth. "I saw you," I said. "At a red light, in the backseat of his car." Her mouth opened, then closed. For a second, one tiny second, I saw panic. Then it vanished, replaced by anger so practiced it felt rehearsed. "You followed me?" she snapped. "You stalked me?" "I didn't follow you," I said. I looked left. She laughed, sharp and ugly. "You're insane," she said. I nodded once. "Okay," I said. That response threw her. She expected a fight. She expected me to defend my sanity like a man begging for his identity. Instead, I reached into the drawer and pulled out the manila folder. I set it on the counter and opened it. Screenshots, hotel charges, investigator reports, photos. Mara's face drained. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "From the truth," I said. She grabbed the folder, flipping pages fast, like she could rip the facts into something else. "This is illegal," she said, voice rising. "You can't—" "It's legal," I said, "and my attorney knows exactly how it was obtained." Her eyes flicked to the living room camera, then back to me. "You're recording me," she said, suddenly softer. "It records the entry," I said, "for security." She swallowed, then leaned closer. "You know what?" she said, voice trembling. "You're doing this because you're controlling, because you can't stand not owning me." I felt something cold slide through me. "There it is," I said quietly. "What?" she snapped. "The story," I said. "The one you and Jacob have been practicing." Her face went still. "Who?" she said too fast. I smiled a little. Not joy, not cruelty, just the kind of smile a man gives when the other person forgets what they've already revealed. "Mara," I said, "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to end it." She stared at me, breathing hard, then did something that would have worked on a different man. She started crying. Big tears, loud sobs, hands to her face, the whole tragedy. "I don't know what you want," she said through tears. I've been trying so hard." I watched her, and I felt nothing. Not because I'd turned to stone, because I'd already grieved in the gas station while rain tapped the windshield. "I want you to leave," I said. "This is my house," she said. "It's our house," I corrected. "But the temporary order says you can't lock me out, and it says you can't take property without agreement. We can do this civil, or we can do it loud." Her tears stopped like a faucet. "You're threatening me," she said. I shook my head. "I'm stating options," I said. She stared at me, then glanced at the camera again, calculating. Finally, she picked up her purse. "This isn't over," she said. I nodded. "It will be," I said. In February, we sat in a courtroom that smelled like old paper and stale coffee. Mara sat at the table with Victor Hale, her aggressive attorney. Hale wore a suit that looked expensive and an expression that looked hungry. Laura sat beside me, calm as a winter lake. The judge, a woman with gray hair and sharp glasses, looked over the filings. "Mr. Bennett," she said, "you're requesting temporary financial restraints and exclusive use of the home?" Laura answered for me, precise and clean. "Yes, Your Honor," she said, "based on evidence of marital misconduct and concerns about dissipation of assets." Hale stood. "Objection," he said. "My client denies any misconduct. Mr. Bennett is using accusations to control and punish her. He has installed cameras in the home. He has monitored her movements. This is about intimidation." My pulse jumped, but I kept my hands flat on the table. The judge looked at me. "Mr. Bennett," she said, "did you install cameras?" "Yes," I said. "For security. They are visible. They do not record private areas." The judge nodded. "Any audio?" she asked. "No," I said. Hale smirked. "Convenient," he said. Laura slid a printed page to the judge. "Your Honor, here is the notice posted in the home and the camera locations," she said. "Additionally, Mr. Bennett has no history of violence or threats. He has acted under counsel." The judge read, then looked at Mara. "Mara Bennett," she said. "Do you have evidence of harassment or threats?" Mara's eyes were glossy, performance ready. "He's been cold," she said. "He watches me. He makes me feel unsafe." "Feeling unsafe is not the same as being threatened," the judge said flatly. "Do you have a specific incident?" Mara hesitated. Hale's jaw tightened. Mara started. Then the judge held up a hand. "Enough," she said. "Temporary orders will be issued to preserve assets. Both parties will comply. Exclusive use of the home will remain joint for now. Any violation will be addressed." Her gavel tapped once, and the sound felt like a door closing. Outside the courtroom, Mara caught my arm in the hallway. "Ethan," she hissed. I stepped back, hands visible. Distance. Hale watched, ready. Mara's eyes flashed. "You think you're so smart," she said. "You think you can ruin me." "I'm not ruining you," I said. "I'm responding to what you did." She leaned closer, voice low enough that it wouldn't carry. "You don't know everything," she whispered. My stomach tightened. "Then tell me," I said. She smiled, small, cruel. "You'll see," she said. 2 days later, my supervisor called me into his office. "Ethan," he said, shutting the door, "we received an anonymous complaint." My skin went cold. "About what?" I asked. He slid a paper across the desk. Allegation. Employee using bank systems to surveil spouse. Misuse of confidential resources. Potential data abuse. My heart hammered once, hard. "I haven't," I said. "I swear I haven't." He held up a hand. "I know you," he said, "but we have to investigate." I nodded, throat tight. "Of course," I said. I walked out of his office and sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel like it might give me a different life. Mara, she'd threatened, she'd smiled, she'd said I didn't know everything. This was the setup. I called Laura. "She filed a complaint at my job," I said. Laura's voice went sharp. "Did you access anything?" she asked. "No," I said. "Never." "Good," she said. "Then we fight with truth. I want every system log you can lawfully obtain. I want a written statement from your supervisor about your role and access." "I can't just pull logs," I said. "That's exactly what they're accusing me of." "Then you request them through the internal process," she said, "and you document everything." I closed my eyes and exhaled. "I'm tired," I said. "I know," Laura said, "but you're not losing." That night, Allison texted me. "Allison, Jacob asked if I'd testify that you're unstable. He said your wife needs protection." I said no. He got angry. "He's slipping." My hands shook as I typed back. "Me. Save everything. Don't confront him alone." Then another message came in from an unknown number. Unknown. "Stop digging or you'll regret it." No name, no signature, just a threat, dropped into my life like a stone into a well. I took a screenshot, added it to the folder. Then I did something I hadn't done since the red light. I prayed. Not in a church way, in a human way. "Please let me be smarter than my anger." The threat text sat in my inbox like a cigarette burn on a clean shirt. "Stop digging or you'll regret it." If I'd been younger, I might have brushed it off as empty macho nonsense. But I'd spent enough time watching people escalate from message to action to know that ignoring a threat doesn't make it disappear. It just makes it undocumented. So I did the boring, responsible thing that never looks impressive in movies. I went to the police station. It was a low brick building with fluorescent lights and posters about neighborhood watch. A tired-looking officer at the desk asked what I needed. "I want to file an incident report," I said. "For what?" he asked, pen hovering. "Harassment," I said. Threatening message. He looked at me for a second, sizing up whether I was the type of guy who wastes everyone's time. Then he nodded and gestured toward a chair. A few minutes later, a younger officer took me into a small room and asked me to read the message out loud. I did. He asked, "Do you know who sent it?" "I have a strong guess," I said, "but I don't have proof." "Any past violence?" he asked. "No," I said. "None." He wrote that down. "Any fear for your immediate safety?" he asked. I thought about Mara leaving the front door unlocked, about Jacob's smile, about the way Hale watched for reactions like he wanted to pull me into a headline. "I'm not panicking," I said, "but I don't want this to vanish if something happens later." The officer nodded like he understood more than he could say. He printed a report number and slid it to me. "Keep this," he said. "If you get more messages, bring them. Don't respond to the sender." "I won't," I said. On the way out, I sat in my truck and let the rain calm my heartbeat. Filing a report didn't make me safer in the moment, but it made my life more provable. That's what I needed. When I got home, Mara was in the living room, pacing. Her phone was in her hand, her face flushed. "Where have you been?" she demanded. I kept my voice level. "Running errands," I said. "You weren't answering," she snapped. "I called twice." "I was driving," I said. "You're lying," she said, stepping closer. I looked past her at the camera, then back at her. "Mara," I said, "we're separated in everything but paperwork. You don't get to interrogate me." Her mouth twitched. "You're acting like I'm dangerous," she said. "I'm acting like I need boundaries," I said. She laughed, sharp. "Boundaries," she repeated. "That's rich." I went to the cook area and poured myself water. My hands didn't shake, not because I wasn't angry, because I refused to give her the satisfaction. Mara followed me. "I talked to Victor," she said. "He says you're trying to take everything." "I'm trying to take my life back," I said. She slammed her phone on the counter. "You think this is some chess match," she said. "You think you're so calm, so righteous." I looked at her. "You want me to yell," I said quietly. "You want me to do something you can point at." Her eyes widened just a fraction, then narrowed. "That's paranoid," she said. I nodded. "Maybe," I said, "but I'm still not yelling." Her breathing got fast. She leaned in close enough that I could smell her shampoo. "You're not even a man anymore," she hissed. "You're just paperwork." The insult was meant to sting. In another life, it might have. In this life, it sounded like a confession of frustration. I set my glass down. "Mara," I said, "if you're going to accuse me of something, do it in writing, through your attorney. Otherwise, I'm done talking." She stared at me like she couldn't believe the audacity of my calm. Then she did something sudden. She slapped the counter with both hands and screamed, "You're ruining me!" The sound bounced around the cook area, loud enough that, if a neighbor was paying attention, they might wonder what kind of man I was. I didn't raise my voice. "I'm not ruining you," I said. "You're experiencing consequences." Her eyes went wild for a second. Then she grabbed her phone and walked out of the room, typing as she went, thumbs flying. 10 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. 2 police officers stood on my porch. My stomach dropped, but my face stayed neutral. "Sir," the older officer said, "we received a call. Domestic disturbance." Mara appeared behind me in the hallway, arms folded, eyes shiny. "I told them I don't feel safe," she said softly. There it was. The move. The script. I stepped back and opened the door wider. "Officers," I said, "come in. You can see the cameras. You can speak to both of us." The older officer's eyes flicked to the living room camera and then to Mara. "Ma'am," he said, "did he threaten you?" Mara hesitated, the pause too long. "He's been intimidating," she said. "Watching me." The officer looked at me. "Any weapons in the home?" he asked. "No," I said. "No guns, no threats, no touching. We've argued. That's it." The younger officer asked, "Can we speak separately?" "Of course," I said. They took Mara to the porch. The older officer stayed with me in the living room, glancing at the cameras. "Those record?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Video only. No bedrooms. No bathrooms." He nodded slowly. "Smart," he said, not complimenting, just acknowledging reality. I didn't show him my manila folder. I didn't wave evidence around like a victory flag. I simply answered questions and let my steadiness speak. When the officers came back in, Mara's eyes were red, her lips pressed tight. The older officer cleared his throat. "Sir," he said, "we're not seeing probable cause for an arrest. Ma'am, if you feel unsafe, you can stay elsewhere tonight." Mara's head snapped up. "Elsewhere?" she repeated, as if the word offended her. The officer's tone stayed calm. That's your choice, he said, but right now this is a civil matter unless someone crosses a legal line. Mara looked at me like she wanted me to react. I didn't. The officers left. The door shut. The house went quiet again. Mara stood in the entryway, breathing hard. You called the cops on me, I said, not as a question. I did what I had to, she snapped. You're acting scary. I nodded, absorbing the lie like rain on a coat. Good, I said. Now there's a report. Her face froze. What? She asked. I filed one too, I said. Earlier, for harassment. Her mouth opened, then closed like the words got stuck. You can't, she whispered. You can't just... I can, I said. And I did. For the first time, she looked afraid of me. Not physically, but strategically. Afraid because the narrative she wanted was slipping out of her hands. She turned and walked down the hall, heels clicking like punctuation. I stood there until her bedroom door shut. Then I sat on the couch and watched the camera play back, not because I enjoyed it, but because I needed to know the truth of my own night. On screen, I saw myself, calm, hands visible, voice steady. On screen, I saw Mara, loud, escalating, calling for help she didn't need. I saved the clip to a drive and wrote the date on the folder tab. I didn't feel victorious. I felt done. Allison and I met again, this time in Laura's office. Allison brought a binder. Inside were business statements from the logistics company, vendor invoices, and a spreadsheet she'd created tracking unusual transfers. Laura flipped through it, eyes narrowing. This looks like skimming, she said. Allison's voice shook. I didn't want to believe it, she said. But it's there. I leaned in, recognizing patterns the way my brain had been trained to. He's paying a shell vendor, I said. He invoices consulting, then routes the money back through gift cards and cash withdrawals. Laura tapped the page. If this is accurate, she said, it becomes leverage in your divorce and in hers, and it becomes a problem for him in a different arena. Will he go to prison? Allison asked, panic in her voice. Laura's tone stayed measured. That depends on what authorities do, she said. But our goal here is safety and lawful outcomes. We don't control everything. I thought about the user message on my phone. Stop digging, or you'll regret it. He was scared, and scared men make mistakes. We filed a report with the state attorney's consumer fraud unit and with the company's bank, without attaching my name more than necessary, letting Laura handle the communication. Paperwork, dates, documents, no drama. Within a week, Jacob's business account was flagged. Not frozen yet, but watched. And watched people tend to slip. When you put a spotlight on a person who's been stealing in the dark, they don't suddenly become honest. They get sloppy. Allison told us Jacob started coming home late and talking fast, like he could outrun his own shadow. He kept asking strange questions about what banks can see and how long records last, pretending it was curiosity, but sounding like fear. One night, he tried to move money out of the business account in a single lump sum. The bank flagged it. The next morning, Allison texted me 2 words that made my pulse jump. Allison, he's spiraling. She followed it with a photo of a crumpled withdrawal slip and a screenshot of Jacob's message to her. Jacob, stop asking questions. I've got it handled. Handled like he was fixing a leaking pipe instead of dismantling his own life. Laura advised Allison to let her attorney communicate and to avoid direct confrontation, but Jacob didn't give her much choice. He showed up at the house midday, unannounced, eyes red, jaw clenched. He demanded my laptop, Allison wrote. He said he needed the files. I told him no. He yelled. The kids heard. Reading that, I felt that old reflex, the urge to drive somewhere and fix it with my hands. But I'd learned the hard way that the urge is the enemy. Instead, I replied the only useful thing. Me. Call your attorney. If he threatens you, call the police. Keep it documented. A few hours later, Paul sent me a final note, short and blunt. Paul, Rains contacted your wife. Meeting at diner tonight. They look nervous. Nervous people make deals. Nervous people also blame each other. And when people like Jacob start blaming, they start talking. We didn't need them to talk to us. We just needed them to talk on record. Mediation was scheduled for March 10th. In my calendar, it looked like any other appointment, an hour block with a location and a reminder. In my body, it felt like standing on the edge of a roof, waiting to find out if the next step was air or concrete. I arrived early and sat in my truck for 10 minutes, watching people walk into the building carrying briefcases and coffee cups, like this was just another Tuesday. I practiced my face in the rearview mirror, calm eyes, closed mouth, no anger leaking out, the kind of expression that gives nobody anything to quote later. When I finally went inside, I signed my name on a clipboard. The pen shook a little. I hated that. I hated that ink could feel like a verdict. A neutral office. Beige walls. A tray of stale cookies no one touched. 2 separate rooms, because that's how they keep people from doing things that make headlines. Laura sat beside me with a laptop open and a stack of files arranged like a small fortress. Victor Hale sat with Mara in the other room, and every time he passed our door, I could feel his eyes on me like he wanted to bait me into something. The mediator, an older man with kind eyes, moved between rooms carrying offers and counter-offers like a mailman delivering bad news. Mara's first offer was insulting. She wanted the house, half my retirement, spousal support for emotional distress. She wrote it like she'd been injured, not unfaithful. Laura read it and slid it back. No, she said. I stared at the beige wall and tried not to imagine the red light. In the afternoon, the mediator returned with a new tone. There's additional concerns, he said carefully. What concerns? Laura asked. Hale had filed a motion alleging I was monitoring and harassing Mara with cameras and tracking devices. Laura didn't blink. We expected that, she said. We have evidence to the contrary. The mediator hesitated. Mr. Hale says there's a witness, he said. Someone who saw you following your wife. My stomach tightened. Laura's eyes flicked to me, then back to the mediator. Who? She asked. The mediator cleared his throat. Mr. Rains. Jacob. My hands went cold. Laura leaned forward. Tell Mr. Hale we'll address that in the joint session, she said. 10 minutes later, we sat in a larger room with Mara, Hale, and Jacob Rains. Jacob looked confident, smug, that same smile from the red light. He wore a wedding ring. Allison hadn't filed yet, not officially. He still thought he could play both sides. Hale opened with a speech about fear and control and surveillance. He painted me as a quiet monster, the kind that scares people more because it doesn't shout. Mara dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. She didn't look at me. Jacob spoke next. I saw him following Mara, he said. He was in his truck. He was watching her. She was scared. He looked at me and smiled like we were in on a joke. My pulse throbbed in my ears. Laura stood. May I? She asked the mediator. The mediator nodded, cautious. Laura clicked a button on her laptop. On the screen appeared a still image from Paul's report. Mara and Jacob kissing outside a hotel, time-stamped, location tagged, investigator credentials attached. Jacob's smile faltered. Laura clicked again. A photo of Jacob holding up Mara's phone at the red light, captured by a security camera from a nearby intersection that Paul had obtained legally through a records request. Jacob's mouth opened slightly. Mara's head snapped up. Hale's face tightened. Laura didn't stop. She clicked again. A screenshot of Jacob's message to Allison. He's unstable. If he confronts you, call the cops. Then another. We can say he followed you. We can say he threatened you. He's got cameras? Perfect. Make him look like a freak. The room went silent in a way that felt physical. Mara's tissue fell from her fingers. Hale stammered. This is authentic, Laura said. Provided by Mrs. Raines through counsel and verified. Additionally, law enforcement has been notified regarding potential financial misconduct, unrelated to this marriage but relevant to credibility. Jacob's face turned a shade paler. His hand went to his ring unconsciously, like it was suddenly heavy. The mediator swallowed. Mr. Raines, he said slowly, are you married? Jacob hesitated. That hesitation was the jaw-dropping moment, the crack in the mask, the second where a man realizes his lies have nowhere left to stand. Yes, he said, voice small. Mara's eyes widened. What? She whispered. Jacob didn't look at her. He looked at me. And for the first time since the red light, the smile was gone. Hale leaned close to Mara, whispering fast, but Mara wasn't hearing him. She was staring at Jacob like she'd just realized she'd been used too. I should have felt satisfaction. I felt something quieter, heavier. I leaned forward and spoke, voice steady. You held up her phone like it was funny, I said to Jacob. You waved at me. You wanted me to lose control. Jacob's jaw worked. You don't know what? I know enough, I said, and I didn't lose control. Mara finally looked at me, real fear in her eyes now. You set me up, she said, voice trembling. Not to me, to Jacob. Jacob's silence answered her better than any confession. The mediator cleared his throat. Given these developments, he said, I strongly recommend we take a break. Laura nodded. We're open to a fair settlement, she said, one that reflects reality. Hale's shoulders sagged, the hungry expression gone. Mara's face was empty. Her performance had run out of script. The settlement came fast after that, not because anyone suddenly became kind, but because leverage is a language everyone understands. Mara agreed to sell the house and split the equity. She waived spousal support. We divided retirement accounts with a clean order. We agreed to keep each other's names out of our mouths in public, because sometimes dignity is the only thing left to negotiate. In exchange, Laura agreed to keep certain documents limited to the court file, not splashed across public hearings. It wasn't mercy, it was strategy. The day we signed, Mara sat across from me in Laura's office with her hands folded, staring at the table like it might open and swallow her. I didn't think you'd actually leave, she said quietly. I looked at her. You left first, I said. She swallowed. He told me you'd rage, she whispered. He said you'd hit me. I felt my stomach twist. And you believed him? I asked. Mara's eyes filled again, but these tears looked different, smaller, realer. I wanted to, she admitted, because it made it easier to blame you. I nodded once. That's the problem, I said. She signed the final page with a shaky hand. Laura slid the papers into a folder and stood. We're done, she said. Outside, the sky was bright and cold. I stood on the sidewalk with the weight of the past 2 months finally shifting off my shoulders. Drew called. It over? He asked. It's signed, I said. He exhaled. You okay? I looked up at the sky. I don't know, I said honestly, but I'm not trapped. Good, he said. Come by later. I've got a beer with your name on it. I'll pass on the beer, I said, and surprised myself by laughing a little. But I'll come by. After I hung up, my phone buzzed with an email from my supervisor. Subject: Investigation closed. Body: Findings indicate no misuse of bank systems. Complaint unfounded. No further action. I stared at the screen, then closed my eyes and let out a breath I'd been holding for weeks. The setup had failed, and in failing, it had exposed everything. A week later, Allison texted me a photo. Jacob's office door with a sign taped to it. Administrative leave. Underneath, her message. Allison. He tried to make us enemies. Instead, he gave us proof. I looked at the photo until my eyes blurred, then typed back. Me. Thank you for not lying about me, she replied almost immediately. Allison, thank you for staying calm. My kids will never know what you saved them from. I set my phone down and sat in the quiet of my empty living room. Boxes lined the wall. The house was already half a memory. I walked to the manila folder, opened the drawer, and held it for a moment like it was something alive. Then I did the last logical thing. I closed it. I didn't need it anymore, because the truth was no longer something I carried alone.